What's going on, my beautiful people? This is Certified Life and Relationship Coach, Coach Court. I want to ask you guys a question, right? I want to ask you something that might hit close to home with something that you may be feeling or experiencing right now. Have you ever noticed that the avoidant doesn't just reveal themselves through actions, but through their words? It's in their tone, it's in the way that they answer questions, it's in how they can talk about feelings without ever really feeling them. Have you ever noticed that? You might be sitting across from them thinking that you're having a deep conversation, but what you're really getting is a carefully rehearsed script that's designed to keep you at a safe distance. So that's what I want to talk to you about today, the language of the avoidant, because once you understand it, the phrases, the tone shifts, the body language that never lies, you stop questioning yourself and you start seeing the pattern for what it really is. And by the end of this conversation, you're going to know how to recognize those tells, why they use them, and what it means for your healing. If you want my help personally, reach out to me on my website at www.fruitfulseeds.com. We usually focus on what avoidants do. They withdraw, they ghost you, they go silent when things get tough. But here's the thing I want you guys to understand. The avoidant tells on themselves through language long before the silence ever arrives. Their communication is their shield. Their words, their tone, their posture, all of it is designed to give the illusion of closeness while keeping real vulnerability out of reach for the person that they're in a relationship with. This isn't about them being liars. This is about survival. Most avoidants grew up in homes where vulnerability wasn't safe. I've talked about this again and again and again. Maybe they were told to toughen up every time they reached for comfort. So they learned a survival strategy. They learned to build a mask, and language became one of their sharpest tools to maintain distance while still looking like they were present. For me, one of the first giveaways is how they talk about emotions. It's like listen to someone who is learning a second language and they've memorized the textbook. It's like me with Duolingo. Like I'm trying to learn Spanish and my wife calls me out right away when she realizes this is something that I'm learning new and I don't really know how to speak. They've got the vocabulary, but they've never lived it. The words are technically correct, but the warmth, the depth, the humanity is missing from it. And I'm going to give you an example. For a secure person, they would say something like, I felt hurt when you didn't show up. What the avoidant would actually say is, I experienced some disappointment around the scheduling change that happened between us. One is a raw and a vulnerable experience. The other one is almost sanitized and stripped down the actual human feelings that comes behind it. A secure partner might look at you with warmth and say, I love being with you. An avoidant says, I enjoy our interactions, or I've never felt like this before. Do you hear any of the differences? One makes you feel safe. The other leaves you feeling like you just shook hands with your own partner. It lacks that connectedness that you'll see with someone who is more secure and understands what those feelings are. They were modeled it when they were younger. Now, I don't want you to hear this and assume that the avoidant is manipulative or incapable of feeling, because they are. That's not the truth. They know what emotions are. They can describe the concepts. They understand the mechanics of love and hurt. But when it comes to owning the feelings, they pull back. They intellectualize it. They minimize it, because I feel that they create space even in their vocabulary. Something powerful becomes interesting. Something joyful becomes nice. A deep connection is just fine. I talk about this when I feel like a lot of avoidance, they suffer from apathy. If you guys are familiar with apathy, where you're just kind of like the donkey Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, where it's just like, it's just fine. I would say he's some form of a dismissive avoidant also. 85% of you guys still aren't subscribed. So do me this favor, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. The real question is, why do they do this? And for me, I believe it's because if they admitted the full weight of what they're feeling, it would overwhelm their nervous system. So they shrink feelings down into small words, and small words for them, it feels safer. This is what I coach a lot of my clients through, is how to have the small words to help the person feel like they're feeling heard and not scared or you're not overstepping your boundaries. Because when you start to catch on to that, you'll notice how often it happens. It's almost like an awakening happening, like you see the lines in the Matrix. You'll remember moments when you poured your heart out to them and they responded with words that technically sounded okay, but you felt like something was empty. I'm going to tell you right now, that's not your imaginations. The avoidant keeping you at arm's length, even in conversation, is something that you can't turn a blind eye to. You know exactly when it's happening. Comment down below if you feel like that's accurate. If you've ever been with an avoidant, you've heard some of these lines. These are the phrases that they pull out anytime the conversation gets too close. And they've practiced these things subconsciously so much that they roll off their tongue without even a thought. For example, you say, I've been feeling disconnected from you lately. And they say, well, relationships have their up and downs. I just talked to a client like that last week. It's almost like they dismiss what you said to fit it in this box of what relationships normally go through, but it doesn't exactly fit your experience. You try to go deeper. You ask, how do you feel about this? And you hit the wall. They say something like, I don't know what you want me to say. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know even how to respond. And that's if you haven't pressed them, because if you've pressed them, they may just cross their arms and just close up. They might go back into their shell. And unfortunately, that's where the conversation usually ends. I mean, sometimes they might push it off into the future and say something like, let me think about it, or can we talk later? And that's something that I teach avoidants that come to me, and they don't even know how to come back later. Sometimes that later never really happens. Or they might minimize by comparison and say, at least we don't fight like other couples. Other people have way bigger problems than this. And for me, I think that means you should be grateful that I'm this passive, so don't ask me for more. And if that doesn't work when they say it, they might turn the problem back onto you saying you're just overthinking or you're being too sensitive. Not everything has to be a big deal. A perfectly normal need for closeness becomes a character flaw within you. You feel personally attacked. You might want to talk about how you're drifting apart because you feel how the disconnect is slowly happening in front of your eyes, and they're onto bills, they're onto work. They may be going golfing or even fishing, trying to do anything except for be with you right now in this moment. I can tell you that if you've ever been stuck in one of those never ending conversations, the maybe next time or maybe next week or when I'm done with this chore, is where they start to talk circles around the problems but never touch on it. You've experienced what many people call word salad, right? It sounds smart, it sounds deep, but at the end of it, nothing has been owned. Nothing has been actually resolved. The issues have been just continuously swept under the rug. And I tell people, when you sweep things under the rug, it's only a matter of time before someone trips over that rug, because conflict avoidant is conflict delayed and magnified. Sometimes they use reassurance as a way to cut it down, saying something like, I care about you. You're an amazing person. I can't see myself with anyone else but you, or everything's fine between us. And it sounds like, all right, this is reassuring, but again, nothing really changes. They've pacified you long enough to the next issue arise, or you finally start to say, nothing's changing, nothing's actually happening. And you get to this point where the water starts to boil so much that you finally start to scream about it, because you're tired of someone who's consistently flipping the mirror back onto you instead of answering some of the things that you need. The conversation is about your tone, your delivery, your timing. You're the one on the defensive. And you try to just bring up a simple, normal need. This is something that is supposed to happen in relationships, open conversation, open dialogue. I know this is hitting hard on a lot of different levels. So if you're someone who this is happening to right now, I want you to think about which one of these things you've heard the most, because I guarantee if you've been with an avoidant, at least one of those things sound familiar. Comment down below. But I want to shift the conversation here for a minute, because I know that words alone aren't always to tell. Their body always reveals the truth. So you want to pay attention to the tone, the posture when things get real vulnerable. Their voice gets flat. It kind of gets monotone. It's almost like the soul left their body and this robot stepped in. Or they start rushing, trying to speed through a vulnerable topic. And anything else? So you want to look at their eyes. Do they hold contact when you're vulnerable, or do they Do they break it? Do they look away like they're ashamed or like they feel guilty about something? Do they start staring at something else, checking their phone? Notice their posture. Do they lean back? Do they cross their arms? Do they angle away from you? Notice they're fidgeting. I see this a lot with people who, are diagnosed with ADHD and also avoidant. They tend to fidget. They tap. They start rubbing their face. They start playing with something, bite them. They start to clean when you're trying to have this conversation. What I see that being is their nervous system saying, I need to escape from this situation. You may even start seeing their breathing is telling on them. They start to take shallow breaths. They sigh before answering questions. Their whole energy starts to shift, which is weird because they're animated when things are light. And when things are feeling heavy, that's when they feel drained, like you just sucked the life out of them. Even the distance between your bodies can tell the story. I start to see this with people that I work with that are couples. I'll say something and it's triggering, or their partner will say something and you see their whole body starts to shift and change. It can be something very subtle because you may be so used to it, but your nervous system actually feels what's happening. I mean, it could be something like saying, I love you. Sometimes it doesn't really land the way that you think it's going to land. The words are there, but the tone, the posture, the eyes don't really match what's going on. I experienced this personally before. And deep down, you really feel that you don't really love me. I don't know if this is true love. I can tell you that mismatch tells you more than a phrase could ever. Even when you push for clarity, their sequence is almost predictable. First, there's that tiny pause, right? They may flinch. They may say, all right. Yeah, their nervous system has already registered threat. Then comes the deflection. They may crack a joke, right? They might change the subject. They call this pattern interrupts. They'll try to disrupt your pattern to move on to something different, something more practical. But if you stand your ground on it, they'll start to minimize it. This isn't a big deal. Why are we talking about this? And you push again, and then it's defensive. And then it's you're bringing too much drama, or they might make quick promises or half agreements, anything to end that talk, right? And you're like, wow, we really made some progress. But at the end of the day, it's like I talked about before, nothing has really changed. And it's frustrating because your communication actually matters. That's what you get into relationships for, to relate with the person. Your ability to say, I love you and mean it, that's not weakness, that's healthy. Your ability to talk out loud about your future plans, that's not being too much. That's actually what secure people do. And I can tell you that the right person won't make you go through this much work. They won't try to pathologize your needs or call your desire for closeness too sensitive. The right person will meet you where you are, because where you are is actually a healthy place. If this talk resonated with you and you want to continue your healing, click this next video.